Hey, beautiful souls, Brittany Shelley here. Welcome to another video on my Miracles of Mind channel, where we learn to change our minds to think with God and live according to his loving laws. Today's video can potentially be a controversial one. What I am doing is I am talking about the perceived divide in our course community, where we have two different visions and two different perspectives of A Course in Miracles. And throughout the 50 plus years of the A Course in Miracles being on earth, it has been clear to a lot of students that there are different ways to perceive it. There are different ways to teach it and learn it. And for me, my answer to things like that is deep research, deep prayer, and communication. We need to communicate to really hear different teachers' positions and perspectives on things so that we can, through the voice of the Holy Spirit and Jesus, make decisions through reason, through understanding, through education, through research, through heart, what is the best approach for us, what the best interpretation and studies of the Course in Miracles is for us. And so in this video today, I share with you some practical examples of people who have come to me for help in regards to this issue, and the things that I had told them to help them to rectify it, to understand, to have some peace. These people came from being extremely stressed and uncertain and overwhelmed to peace by the end of our conversation together. And so I felt, because it was so helpful for this individual and other individuals I work with, that perhaps it would be helpful for you too. So you will see throughout this as well that I referenced an A Course in Miracles documentary that I'm doing. I've been working on it hard with my editor, Andrew. Thank you, peace be with you. And I have it right here on the screen for you to take a little peek-see at the table of contents, because we are far into this and there has been so much research done. So I did want to point out that what it is that I'm sharing is not personal opinion as much as it is me taking in the understanding and the perspectives of those who have been part of the A Course in Miracles community since its very beginning. And so I'm trying to kind of bring everything together and show us a whole perspective of things instead of a one-sided perspective of things. And then it can help you to, make the decisions that you need to make to bring more peace to your heart, mind, and life. So with that being said, my friends, you are going to get a little glimpse here into some bloopers that Ella and I did, because she joined me for the beginning of this video, and it's just so cute. I couldn't leave it out. And then we settle into the teaching. Throughout this whole process, if you're inspired to comment, please say something below that does help this video on this channel. And also, while you're down there, please like and subscribe, because that does help to bring this video to those with whom it's meant for. So that being said, thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for you for turning on this video. I hope it's helpful, and see you soon. Okay, ready? Bye. 1, 2, 3. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Miracles of Mind. I am Brittany Shelley, and today I have Ella Joy with me, my beautiful 8-year-old daughter. And she's actually with us today because she was super patient, you guys. I had a longer than usual consultation today. She just played about, and she asked to sit in on this conversation. So of course I said yes. But as you will see from above, we are diving into the topic of the two different visions of A Course in Miracles. If anybody has been in the Course in Miracles community for any amount of time, you will notice that there's technically two narratives and two schools of thought. And we generally have the one thought that has been brought up through Ken Wapnick and the Foundation for Inner Peace version of A Course in Miracles. And then there's the other version that perceives the Course and the teachings of the Course a little bit differently, which comes in alignment with Robert Perry and the Circle of Atonement version, in alignment with the Sparkly A Course in Miracles, which is my camp. And these two differences of perceiving the Course have created what is perceived as like conflict and disagreement and confusion within our Course community. And genuinely, you guys, over the last 15 years, I have had so many people reach out to me to help them to understand this divide, because a lot of the people will feel attacked or not heard or misunderstood, and they're just left really confused. Sometimes people will even attribute trauma to this conflict, and I really help people navigate this and understand this for years. And this is actually part of the reason why I'm doing a Course in Miracles documentary, because there's so much misunderstanding around all of this, and there's so much of the whole history of A Course in Miracles that hasn't fully been shared, and so that has definitely become my role and part of my soul's purpose and God's plan to fulfill. But since this woman brought up her situation today, I felt like it was the perfect opportunity to share some practical insights that I shared with her to perhaps help you as you are embarking upon your A Course in Miracles journey. And even if you've been an A Course in Miracles student for a long time, or you're just beginning, it is helpful to be aware that there are two different versions of the course. And just because someone disagrees with you about how to see something doesn't immediately mean that you're wrong or that something's wrong with you. Okay, so when this woman came to me today, let's just call her Joan, okay, as like an aside name. So she came with me today, and her main problem was with her sister. And her sister is an A Course in Miracles student. She's also an A Course in Miracles teacher. She's connected with other A Course in Miracles teachers in Melbourne. And yet this A Course in Miracles teacher sees things quite differently than Joan. And because they're sisters, they had some squabbles, they had some disagreements, but from those disagreements, instead of conversation, communication, personal responsibility on both parties, and then coming to an agreement through the guidance of Jesus or the Holy Spirit, this A Course in Miracles teacher sister instead wrote her quite a nasty email that was basically saying that Joan is at fault, that she's an illusion, that nothing's happening anyway, and she needs to recognize that, and like basically what's wrong with you, and shunned the sister to the point where she said she doesn't want to speak with her anymore, she doesn't have any contact with her anymore, and really cut her out of her life. So it's been a few years that Joan has been in this dynamic of trying to understand why her sister cut her out of her life when all she really wanted to do was, yeah, we see things differently, but let's communicate about it. And so here's what I told Joan, okay? This is how I broke it down. And I first asked her a few questions about her sister. I said, okay, well, has your sister, trained and taught under Ken Wapnick? And she said, oh yes, of course. The main mentality that comes out of that school of thought is this world is an illusion, which it is, but it's used as a defense against their own emotions. So for example, when her sister would feel anger, instead of looking at that anger, processing that anger with the Holy Spirit, uprooting it so it could be corrected, like reinterpreted, which is actually what forgiveness is for. It's a reinterpretation of perception. It's a correction of error. She would just lay a concept over top. Oh, anger is never justified. Oh, anger is just an illusion. Oh, you're just an illusion. This is all your stuff. It's not mine. Oh, well, there's nothing happening. And so it would literally be concepts that are thrown across emotions that get triggered in relationships. And that causes a disassociation. It causes a disassociation between the person and their own thoughts, because thoughts produce emotions. It creates a disassociation between how one actually feels, so that instead of transcending above the anger and ultimately coming to acceptance, courageousness, peace, the peace of God, they keep their anger pushed down in their subconscious to bubble underneath, even if you're not fully seeing it expressed. I mean, if it's not triggered, it doesn't often get expressed, but it's just bubbling about, right? So that's why disassociating from her sister helps her to keep her anger hidden down, because she doesn't have to feel it, therefore she doesn't have to see it, and therefore she doesn't actually have to heal it. That is the main chief weapon of the ego, is disassociation, disassociating itself from one's emotions, one's thoughts, and others. So the sister who's claiming to be an A Course in Miracles teacher is doing the epitome of what the ego does. And the thing that's interesting about that is I'm pretty certain it's in chapter 3, but let me double check on that. There is a whole section in A Course in Miracles where Jesus talks about the ways that the ego defends itself against correction, against healing, against the atonement, against forgiveness, and disassociation is in there, among so many other things. But this plays into another realm of why there's two different versions, and it's so hard sometimes, because in the Foundation for Inner Peace, all those references were taken out. In the Foundation for Inner Peace, all the references to you as a soul before it transcends to the realization that we are the sons of God, the children of God, which is the next big step in our thinking. It starts with where you are and the recognition of soul. It takes everything about that out. The will was edited out. So many aspects of like humanity is edited out. Thank you, Ella. So many confirmations of having miracles active in the world and being able to ask Jesus with all the minute things that happen in our life. All this stuff is edited out. Over 60,000 words in total are absent from the A Course in Miracles in that version. And so sometimes it can feel janky, it can seem confusing, and then it makes sense to want to have other teachers to help you to understand this stuff because it doesn't really make sense to you. But when we lean over to something like the Circle of Atonement version or the Sparkly version, it's been reinstated to the way that it was before all those highly edited things had happened. And so it seems to like fill in some of those gaps that appear to be janky at first. And it also puts you back into the position of taking Jesus as teacher. And that is what I am most interested in, is having people return to the Holy Spirit and Jesus being their teacher and interpreter of these messages. And in my experience, when we have a relationship like Joan had with her sister, when you have like a conflict that comes up, what we are being asked to do through the A Course in Miracles from a Christ perspective is to admit that you're feeling that anger in that moment and not throw concepts on it on the other person, because it has nothing to do with the other person, but it's all about you. And to be like, okay, what has triggered this anger? What am I thinking that is out of accord with God? What am I believing about myself that attributed to this anger? And how is it that I can see myself and this anger differently so that I can correct this and come closer to my sister instead of further away from her, right? So it becomes this introspection that needs to happen, like this full-on overturning of how you see things so that you can have the relationship be mended and healed and become holy. But instead what happened is her sister disassociated, separated from her sister, found an A Course in Miracles partner who helped confirm those beliefs to herself. And so now they have a special relationship, and she has a substitute for her relationship with her sister with this other person who confirms her beliefs about A Course in Miracles. So now she's justified in the sister now being the one solely responsible for the anger, and the sister being the one who's at fault, not her, and the illusion. And now she's got justification for her beliefs because she has someone who confirms to her that it's okay to just say illusions are, everything is an illusion, nothing's happening, nothing's going on. Whereas again, in the camp where we take Jesus as our guide, Jesus wants us to see that sons of God are here, souls are here, that God's love is here. The real world is here, and we're asked to live it in the real world. And when we allow the Holy Spirit to change our perception, it allows us to correct our own error so we're not seeing a mistake in the other. And instead we give only forgiveness to the other. And when we give forgiveness to the other, it brings you closer as the sons of God that we are to have a shared experience of holiness. That is the miracle. That is what this Course in Miracles is for, is to teach us to have miracles in our relationships. So instead of disassociating, we come closer. Okay. And so this is something that we need to really start to recognize. Am I listening to the voice that is going to disassociate, is going to separate, is going to apply concepts, is going to feel justified in its own beliefs by finding alliances, substitutes with other teachers or people? Or are we taking the approach that I am responsible, radically responsible to how I feel, radically responsible for the problems that I'm perceiving, and to really do some inner introspection of what you're thinking and believing that is out of accord with God? And also questioning what you have not yet thought that God would have you think. That's another really big one that I have found is often overlooked as well, that we share one mind with God and we have the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit speaks the thoughts of God, and it is the same in our mind. So when we are listening to the Holy Spirit gives the same message because it is one. So there's a lot of the time where we haven't thought the thoughts with God that we need to think with him in order to be like, aha, I am who you say I am. You are who he says you are. And in that shared recognition of identity, of love, of Christ, of child of God, of son of God, then we are freed to fulfill the will of God. And in the A Course in Miracles, it tells us that God's will for us is perfect happiness, and my happiness and my function are one. And so when I fulfill my function, which is first forgiveness, coming closer together instead of further apart, and when we come together, that is when we're restored to the will of God. So now we can fulfill our function in God's plan for salvation. So now we're aligned with giving and extending and expressing the will of God to our brother who needs help. So now we see our brother who is chained by his own decisions that he makes with ego. It is our job as the son of God to recognize that he's made decisions with ego that makes him appear to be chained. See him as unchained, as the light, as the sun, as the soul that is free eternally. And from that perspective of him, help him to navigate out of the chains
by helping to like unwind and undo those thoughts of ego and those beliefs and conclusions of ego, so he can be returned to the awareness of who God created him to be. That's the joining point. That's the miracle point. And that's where we're both blessed in the giving and the receiving. But I'm seeing what is real in you. I'm not seeing an illusion. I'm actually overlooking the illusion. I am above the battlefield. So one train of thought is there's nothing here, nothing happening, all is an illusion, nothing's going on, bodies don't exist, you are not this body, and it's a nothingness zone, which seems to disassociate, separate, distance from each other. Like I've had people come to me who've even like worked with Kenneth Wapnick who, no, they were the child of the person who worked with Kenneth Wapnick, and the child was deserted as a young boy from his mother who worked with Ken Wapnick because of the same mentality. It's all illusion. There's nothing happening. There's nothing going on. So she dropped her function and role as mother to go work in this place. And of course, that had trauma-inducing effects on this son until this son started to learn how he could think with Christ and how he can change his mind and how he can forgive and how he can live a quality of life that is in accordance with the Course in Miracles, that doesn't push people out of their lives because they have disagreements or because they have responsibilities or because of whatever the thing may be. And so this is a really important thing. Something else about this is a lot of the people who encounter this stuff, like this man and this woman, Joan, they come with the mentality like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm not resonating with the stuff that my sister is saying, what's wrong with me? I'm not resonating with the stuff that Wapnick or Hoffmeister is saying, what's wrong with me? And I have to remind people there's nothing wrong with you. You are just learning how to discern between truth and illusion through the Holy Spirit in your own mind. That's enough. That's enough. We need to trust things that light our soul on fire. We need to trust things that make us feel, inspired and make us, want to serve in the greatest way possible. People, go ahead, honey, if you want to pop out. No, you're just gonna stand there. Okay. So the last few things that I want to say here, because I said that I would keep this short to Ella Joy and to you guys, but it is what it is. I think one final thing here is the way that we know it's the Holy Spirit is because the Holy Spirit seeks to communicate. The Holy Spirit seeks to solve problems. And in A Course in Miracles, Jesus says the Holy Spirit has the function of mediator between truth and illusion. And the Holy Spirit also is the communication link between us and God and us and the separated children of God. And so when we have a problem, a perceived problem, one of the ways to solve those problems is through communication, both communication with the Holy Spirit and with Jesus, but also communication to the Holy Spirit and Jesus and our brother and sister soul. So communication is the mark of the Holy Spirit, in my opinion. And so this does tie into the history of the two different voices and visions of the Course, because in past history, when it came to these disagreements coming out, that people like Robert Perry would teach it totally different than Ken Wapnick, instead of having a conversation about it and a dialogue about it, what happened is that Ken would send cease and desist letters to people like Robert Perry and try and get them to stop printing and stop opening up groups and stop teaching about it. And those cease and desist letters led to even more people wanting to communicate about it and understand because they didn't. But what that led to is more court cases. And the court cases happened with Ken and the foundation and even Penguin Books leading the way. And there is a whole outcome of those court cases that was not in the favor of Ken Wapnick and actually helped to open and free and bring the Course in Miracles open source. And that's a big part of the reason why we have so many versions today. But Ken Wapnick really did not communicate with people that he had disagreements with, that he didn't resonate with, who were teaching different than him and who were just doing things different. There was no communication with that. And you can even see that in the open letter that Robert Perry put out to Ken, trying to understand why he's doing what he's doing. And Ken never made his public. So there's a lot of like secrecy and hidden ideas and just one-sided views of what's going on. But we're course students. We want to see whole views. It's about wholeness. It's about holiness. It's about shared identity. It's about resolving conflict. It's about peace. It is about peace. And anytime we see a problem with a brother, anytime that we judge a brother for being different, less than, more, better, worse than us, we're mistaken, because we're not seeing them as the innocent, equal child of God that they are. And if we're not seeing them as the innocent, equal child of God that they are, then we're mistaken in how we see ourselves. And that's just what it is. That's just perception and projection and how they work together. So I guess my last thoughts about this here, my friends, is actually there's this book that Robert Perry and his team at the Circle wrote, and it's called One Course, Two Visions. I honestly have only read the first few pages. So like what I'm talking about now has come through my research in the documentary, which so far in the first few pages is being confirmed in this book, but I haven't fully read this book yet. But he says here, different interpretations amount to different recipes for a spiritual life. So depending on the interpretation that we take on the course, it literally will be the recipe that we have for the kind of life that we're going to live. And in my experience, we are learning how to not only work miracles in our mind, which is to change our perception from fear to love and from judgment to brotherhood, right? From separation to unity, to the one self that we are. Like that's our first miracle, is our forgiveness of our shift in perception. But a miracle is also an extension, right? It's an extension of love to my brothers. It's a service to my brothers. It's being helpful and kind and loving to your brothers in the world. That's the mark of being God's son for me. That when you can be of service to anyone and everyone, not just course students. I mean, it's one thing to talk to people who think you're the hot shit, and like it's so easy to talk to people who will confirm your beliefs about yourself. It's a different story to be like an example of a good Samaritan who's going to go out on the street, see someone suffering, feel the call of the Holy Spirit and help that person. To just go to the store and have a conversation with the worker there and really just help them in whatever way has inspired you to help. We're meant to be in the world, but not of it. We are meant to bless the world with miracles. We are meant to be a demonstration that we are not egos, that we are the light of the world like Jesus was and is still today. We are asked to demonstrate a relationship with Christ that is intimate and personal and holy, because that's a big part of what A Course in Miracles is for, is to allow us to be of one mind, to be the one mind that we share with him, to be the one mind we share with God, to be the one mind that we share with each other. So we really can birth the real world here, which is shared amongst God's sons. And like, that is what is actually here, right? So we want to see what is here versus what isn't here. And when we see what is here, that is when we have the fruits of joy, of peace, of brotherhood, and of everything we want. And so my friends, this is a call to forgiveness of the past, both our own past and the community's past. This is a call to acceptance of the present, which is where you are, I am, and we are as God's children. And this is also a call to giving what you've received and allowing yourself to extend miracles and help and gifts to those who need it, and to really discern between what school of thought is most in alignment with your spirit, to have what I just said be cultivated and encouraged and really lived in our daily lives. And so that is that. So with that being said, my friends, I would love to hear from you below. Is this something that you've noticed in our course community? Is this something that's irritated you in our course community? Is this something that you've forgiven and healed and worked through? Is this something you haven't even noticed? And is this something you want to learn more of? Because there's so many different layers and so many different facets of this. I think what I'm going to ask you guys to do is like and subscribe, because when you like and subscribe this channel, it brings it to those whom this message is meant for. And every single person who gets brought into my sphere, like Joan, she was radically shifted by the end of our call. So much understanding slotted in, so much confirmation of her and the voice that she can trust inside her soul was brought to awareness. She was a completely different being from when she came to talk to me to 30 minutes later when she left my call. And so I want the same thing to happen for people with this video. I want the same thing to happen for the people that you help, to just be the light of the world, and to really look at things honestly and truthfully, even look at the dark things. It's really okay to look. It's really okay to feel those dark energies. We're human, but we need to be the one that's holding the lantern so that we can look with Christ and with the Holy Spirit. We're not meant to deny. We're not meant to shove down. We're meant to excavate, right? We want to look. Jesus says darkness cannot hide, and you don't not want it to, because when we look at the darkness for what it is, we see it as meaningless. We see it as nothingness. We do see it as the illusion, but we can also look past that to what is really here, which is us as children of God. So if you resonate with this message, like and subscribe. Please send me some comments below. I will read them all and I will respond to you. And you can also share this with anybody that you feel might benefit from this. But thank you, my friends. I will also put a link to a 20-minute consultation with me if that inspires you. And I will also put a link to Robert Perry and the Circles book below, because it's a really, really good one so far from what I've read, but it already feels in alignment. I love you guys. Peace be with you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye. No. Okay. Hey, beautiful souls. No. We're good? Yeah. Okay, great. Let's do this. I am Britney Shawley, and this is...
What?
What's your name?
Mommy.
Ready and...
Wait.
Brittany Shelley, and I am going to close the window. I'm going to say that closed. So we have the one pass of the course.
There's
what's
a
going on?
bug.
Okay. Should we try one more time? And then if it doesn't work, we're done. How about we go like this? Dear Jesus, I want this video to be for you, to help your course students to understand your course better and to come closer to a relationship with you as they learn the course.